looks like we might have done it. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Everything's purring now. All right, so for everybody in here, I did a great introduction for an audience of none of you. So I'm gonna go ahead and see where everybody in the chat is from. Italy, Brazil, Iran, Madison, Wisconsin, rural Ohio, semi-rural Quebec, Canada, Morocco, Prague, Japan. Awesome. Awesome. Very cool. Brazil, Norway, Denver, Colorado, Iran, Arizona. Okay, well, hello, everybody. I am Jordan Pizzanello. I am the community manager for Rocky Linux. Today, we're going to bring you our first ever QA. This is going to be something that's definitely subject to change in the future. We'd really like to bring some of you in here to talk with us so we could hear from some of you. If you would like to submit questions today, we have the live chat in YouTube. And if you are not already part of our Mattermost instance, you can join at chat.rockylinux.org. And we have a special events channel for submitting questions there as well. So we'll be monitoring both of those throughout the entire chat. And with that being said, I am going to start our introductions by passing it over to Greg.
Hi, everybody. I'm Greg. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what to say for an introduction here, but yeah, most of my background is in high performance computing. I did some cool open source projects, and I was been part of some cool tech over the years. CentOS is one of them, and a couple others, and now this. So super excited to be working with the team and everybody that's come to offer help and to be part of this. So it's been just a fantastic journey so far, and this is just the beginning. So looking forward to seeing where this is going to go. So thanks, everyone.
Awesome. I guess I'll go next. My name is Leigh. I'm the Director of Operations here for Rocky Linux. My background is not in Linux and operating systems, although I have tons of experience there, of course. But I come from the networking hyperscaler infrastructure world. I spent a whole bunch of time at AWS, MIT Lincoln Labs before that, Cisco Kalo Lab before that. And I am at the opposite end of the country as Greg. I am up in coastal Maine. Neil, how about you go next?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Leigh. My name is Neil Hanlon. I am one of the infrastructure leads here for Rocky Linux, and my background, similarly to Leigh, is in the networking side of things, but I have a pretty big background also in the Linux systems administration, and my colleague Taylor is unfortunately listen only right now because he's under a power outage. But Taylor Goodwill is my partner in crime for managing all the infrastructure here for Rocky.
I can go next. My name is Rob Felsberg. I manage the security team here. My background is in Linux security systems engineering as a whole, and I'm here in Ohio. And I will go ahead and pass off to Ben.
Yes, I'm Ben Agner. I am currently working for Aflac as a director in global security. I'm here with the Rocky team to help support Rob and work on the kind of governance, risk, and compliance and all the fun paperwork and policies and everything else like that. So.
All right, I'll go next. I'm Hayden. I'm not in the US. I'm all the way over in the UK. I'm a software developer and DevOps engineer for a small company in Sheffield, and I am the web and design lead on the Rocky Linux project and for the RESF.
I can go next. My name is Wally Shoinka, and I am the lead for the documentation group. Background is sys administration as well as writing, lots of writing and lots of sys admin. Good to be here. Happy to meet everybody.
Brian, I think that just leaves you.
Brian looks like he's having some technical difficulties, so we can loop back around to him later if we want, or someone else can introduce him.
We'll let him introduce himself when he's got it going. I'll make sure I see his mic activate there.
Good call.
So as this event progresses, we may have some other members, drop on and drop off. The thing about working, in such a distributed nature is that everybody's kind of all over the place. We're doing the best we can. We're definitely going to plan these events with a lot of more lead time in the future so that hopefully we could get some better coverage. I know some of our international friends were, here it seems, we're pretty much US based for the majority. So we'll definitely work with some other times in the future. I know there's a few of you in here that said like, all right, I'm going to bed. I'll watch in the morning. So hello to you watching in the morning. Hope you're enjoying your coffee. Wow, look at this. Netherlands present, Maryland. Cool, nice to see where everybody's from. I don't think I said I'm from New Jersey. That's really boring. No one cares. I'm the butt of states here. So we have some questions to get to. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to kind of gather them as we go along and read them out and kind of direct it to the appropriate team as we go along here. So one of the first I have here is if I'm running CentOS 8 right now, will there be a clear migration path to Rocky Linux 8? So with that, I will pass that off to Greg.
I knew you were going to give that one to me. You know why? Because Lewis isn't here.
Yes, he will be joining us. He will be joining us.
Yeah. So Lewis has been driving most of this with the rest of the development team. They've been doing just a tremendous job. In terms of transition, the answer is yes, absolutely. So you'll be able to go from CentOS 8, RHEL 8, if you even so desire. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that because there'll be other licensing issues if you do that. But yes, going from CentOS to Rocky, CentOS 8 to Rocky will be a very simple transition plan. I keep challenging the team in terms of how can we do this in a single DNF command. I'm not sure we're going to be able to at the end of the day. It may end up being a couple commands to do this. We can absolutely facilitate this with either a script or just copy paste commands from the website, and then you just run that in a terminal. So that would be transitioning a live system. And that should work, again, absolutely flawlessly. Now, that's going from CentOS 8 to Rocky. Going from CentOS 7 or any other versions is not going to be quite so easy. That we're not going to be necessarily supporting directly. If somebody from the community wants to dabble in that, please do. But we would suggest not to do that on your production systems. Well, maybe you want to. I don't know.
It's not recommended, but you can do.
Live life on the edge, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
What could possibly go wrong?
We'll see. Let's see here. So what kind of support cycle can we expect from Rocky Linux? So Greg again.
Sorry. No worries.
It's actually just a Q&A with Greg.
Yeah, I was just about to say,
Yes.
it's not me, it's the team. Maybe I should tag someone else. No, maybe.
Sure.
I'll let Jordan be the bad guy. I'm going to be the good guy in all of this. In terms of release cycles, we're going to follow RHEL as absolutely closely as possible. When you see RHEL have a new release, the goal is for us to have a release as shortly thus after as absolutely possible. Of course, there's a bunch of dependencies and other factors in that we'll be trying to manage and mitigate as best as we can. But one of the things that I would mention is, and one of the primary goals of what it is that we're creating is we're trying to create an open, inclusive community here. And what that means is, if the development team is currently, whether they're busy, whether they, are working on things in their life or whatever the case may be, this is a community. So we want other people, we want you and everyone that's listening and whatnot to feel compelled and invited to come and join what it is that we're doing. So if we're overwhelmed and we got something else going on, I mean, join up and help out. That is absolutely part of what it is we're doing. As a matter of fact, that's a core facet of what we're doing. And Lewis, as soon as you give me the thumbs up, no, I guess not.
No, I was talking to someone else. My mistake.
Oh, that was like perfect timing, Lewis. As soon as I asked you a question, you're like, no.
No, I was asked for coffee. I was like, oh no, I'm good right now.
Coffee. I thought we were drinking other things. Oh well. Anyway, are we allowed to say that on the air? Yeah, I guess so. All right. So I think that covers it. The goal is, to stay as close to RHEL as absolutely possible.
I think I'd add to that. What is, you really alluded to that, Greg, but just to sort of round that out a little bit more, one of the things that we really worked very hard on enabling was the ability for a wider developer contribution model. So whereas previous distributions or alternate distributions may follow a model where only a smaller handful of devs can submit and perform builds, one of the things that we're trying to do, like you said it exactly correct, is to allow the community. So being able to release those patches or updates as they come out, hopefully that the target would be within the matter of hours. Again, it's going to be situational, like you said, but the way we've sort of gone about putting together the build infrastructure is what allows us to engage that wider community. So instead of having 5 or 6 devs be the only ones that can submit and perform builds and do patches and stuff, enabling a much wider community contribution base is how we're going to be able to ensure that releases are much swifter than perhaps previous distributions have been.
Awesome, great, thank you. The next question I have here is, what are the differences between the forums and Mattermost? So I'll be the good guy. I'll answer this one. So the main differences are the forums are more for durable conversation, whereas Mattermost allows us to have a lot more real-time synchronous conversation, which is great to interact kind of with everybody in real time, have some nice fluid conversations going. But the forums have served as a great place for us to post some announcements now, like our community updates. Those are also put onto our website, but the forums allow us to, get some comments going in on there as well. We've also been using the forums. I just created a subsection on there for events. So we'll have plans in the future around, a community calendar with some events going and where you can find so-and-so's appearance on this podcast or, anything like that. Because we definitely like that to be organized. So it's a little archaic of a way of doing it right now. So it's good to stay tuned in there as well. Some good discussions going on there still. And Mattermost is great too, because we have just so many channels in there. For every interest, including special interest groups as well. There's some channels in there. And we're definitely open to creating new ones as well. If anybody has a great idea or a new special interest group that they're interested in, you could definitely let us know. The same goes for the forums as well. If you think there's anything that can be, improved, we're always open to any sort of feedback for that kind of stuff as well. So I am seeing they have branded t-shirts already, Eric, on YouTube. Staff only, I suppose. No, we do have a store. I think somebody might have linked it in chat already, but if you go to rockylinux.org, you can click on the store in the nav bar on top, and it'll bring you to our partner, Muckles, and you can find all of this there. They just rotated in some new stuff for the spring. So some lighter colors. I know there was somebody on the forums that asked about, please have white t-shirts for those of us that live in very warm climates. So they're there. They are there, which is great.
T-shirts, hoodies, hats, it's all sorts on there.
Backpacks, all sorts.
Even branded lounge pants now. So.
And just the follow-up question on that too, the funds all go to support Rocky Linux and the project and everything that we do here.
Yes, thank you. I just saw that one. Okay. You gonna say something?
No, my mic just didn't turn off.
So I see, what are the biggest challenges that the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation have had to overcome? Anybody?
I think this might be, I think this one, maybe we can all go around and pitch into what challenges we've had in our individual teams.
Perfect.
So that might be a good. Oh, no.
It's a great idea. Start us off, Wally.
Hey, you suggested it, Wally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so in the documentation group, one of the challenges we've had has been with languages. So, for example, would like to have more than one person that's a native language speaker to write documentation for something. So we have more than a set of eyes looking at what people have contributed. So that's been interesting. We have people interested in contributing in different languages. So say somebody wants to translate our documentation into French, but it'll be nice if we had a second person or a third person that can also speak French, so that they can tag team and deal with that. So that's so there's been that. So that's been interesting. The other thing has been to trying to decide on a documentation mechanism that is easy for everybody, for newbies to use. So we've been going back and forth with that. So Elizabeth, I'm gonna stop talking now.
Thank you. Anybody?
Yeah, I'll take over next. And honestly, I think that our biggest challenges haven't really come yet, or we don't really know what they are. So it's maybe a bit early to even speak about what challenges we've had. And truthfully, we've had so much tremendous community support and so many of you people watching and supporting behind the scenes and donating. And truthfully, that has enabled us to overcome all of those obstacles that we may have been having. Day one of getting stuff to have secure infrastructure and in places to store passwords and all of those sorts of things. So truly the tremendous support and giant, outpouring of backing for this project has really driven us not only to be able to do those things, but has, at least for me, has really driven me to want to work on Rocky, because I know that there's such a huge community of people that are wanting this and needing this, truthfully. So one of the things that the infrastructure team in particular is struggling with, is a hurdle that we're trying to overcome, is getting the community more involved with the infrastructure team and enabling people to work on infrastructure tasks and projects that we're working on in a meaningful way without exposing the infrastructure underneath Rocky Linux and keeping it as secure as possible. So that's probably our biggest challenge now is coming up with those sorts of ideas. And if anyone has thoughts on ways that we can accomplish that, I'd love to hear what you are thinking on those terms and in ways that we might be able to get more people involved into the infrastructure without opening up security vulnerabilities and making our security posture less secure.
Yeah, and that's a real big thing with this is that just the sheer scale of the interest in this project has been massive, and we've spent a lot of time ensuring that the community can be involved and can talk, right? I mean, just simply setting up Mattermost and having a place where we don't lose conversations after the 10,000 message limit is hit, right? That took time, and it took people, and it took resources. And bootstrapping an infrastructure from ground zero takes time, right? Getting servers, getting the logistics, getting networking, getting firewalls, working with partners, establishing partnership agreements, all of that really takes a massive amount of time organizationally. And to me, it's been I've been amazed at how much work has been able to be done in parallel as all this is being built out. And I see Greg twitching over there in the corner. I feel like he's got some comments on this one, but yeah. But that's really been the big thing, is that the scale, is a big piece of it. So
To build on that before Greg gets his teeth into it. From the security side, building a security program from the ground up, while not difficult, is, Ben and I have both done that. That's not insurmountable by any, way, shape, or form. But doing so in a way that allows for open sourcing the code and the Ansible and still managing to secure the environment is incredibly difficult as well. A lot of the security that is baked into your kind of normal security programs is very much based on that hard outer edge and keeping stuff locked down. So
yeah, so if there's anybody out there that's watching this that enjoys writing governance documents, please feel free to reach out to me. If it's just in your free time, you're like, what, I write policies for fun, like come talk to me, because we need a lot.
Do we really want somebody who does that for fun? Like, I draw the line. All right.
If you are a unicorn, come help us out.
Yes.
I guess I can go next if nobody else has anything else to say on that one. I think, obviously, with me wearing two hats, there's not really much going on with the design side, so I haven't really faced many challenges outside of just, creating the designs for things. But with the web team, obviously, by its nature, the stuff that's been going on with our web presence and all that sort of thing is very open to the public, and I think a lot of the challenges that we've faced have been either with the technology we use to build the site, or with the flood of people from the initial peak of interest. It was, I think, the most challenging part was trying to gate the translation requests. We had a lot of people coming in with lots of translations for the site, or coming in and creating the sort of the translation for their language and things like that. I think honestly the most challenging part of the of what the web team has done in a lot of the time was trying to manage those properly. Outside of that, there was the tech stack. We've got to a point now where we've found a tech stack that works well and is going to work well for a while to come. It's going to be maintainable. Going to be, easy for somebody to read because it's JavaScript at the base. It was sort of getting to that point because we bounced around a couple of frameworks for a little bit until we settled on the one we're using, which is Gatsby. Outside of managing contributions and figuring out sort of our ideal tech stack, it's been smooth sailing.
It's not something to complain about.
No, I'm not by any means complaining about the amount of translation requests. It's just that there were so many of them that it was a bit of a challenge to manage initially, but I think we've gotten there in the end.
Yeah, I think from an operations perspective, the most challenging thing I think has been for me is coordinating all the people and all the different teams towards a realistic end goal. And so there's a ton of people, there's a ton of things that need to be done. There's a tremendous amount of excitement, and how do we take all of that and translate it towards executable direction? That requires a tremendous amount of coordination, and we're very fortunate in that really everybody in the community and all the different channels and on the forums, like the amount of energy and good ideas and goodwill that people have contributed has been phenomenal. But trying to figure out how to put the wheels in motion has been, I think, probably one of my key challenges.
So from like a developer release engineering standpoint, I mean, we got there's like a handful of challenges. On top of all the complexities that we're having, that we keep running into, and things have changed in the last 10 years, as tech does. And so it's I would say just the complexities alone have just been a challenge all by itself. But I'm at least thankful that I have quite a few people that have stepped up and said, hey, I can contribute. And a lot of people have contributed in a meaningful way, which has been absolutely fantastic. And I am actually I'm very happy and humbled with the team that I have sorry about the screaming in the background if y'all hear it, but it's more of, I think just the whole, I think actually just not really finding, but like getting the right people in that see something and see that they can actually do something about it it was kind of a challenge at first, because it's just there were so many people at once. There were so many things happening at once, and trying to get kind of a hold on that was, I would say that was probably I would say it was probably medium difficulty, but at the same time it was also kind of stressful to wake up in the morning and just see a flood of messages in your queue you have to go through, and all these private messages and stuff like that. But the bulk of it right now is just all technical now, and we're fighting through that, and we got a good amount of people in our packaging channel that's definitely been a huge help on all that stuff. So that's basically the biggest challenges I've kind of fought through and still fighting through.
Sure, I think that just leaves me. I believe so. Okay.
And Greg.
Hey, Greg, yeah.
Yeah.
Who's
Nobody
that?
came to hear Greg.
Who's that Greg guy?
You want to go first, Jordan?
Sure. So I would say from a community standpoint, building an audience, there are a lot of corners throughout the web that people that are interested in this project hang out, whether it be IRC, Hacker News, some people on Twitter, some people on Federated Alternatives, YouTube, and it's just trying to be everywhere at once and trying to interact with as many as I can. I've actually spent some time on our YouTube channel that I hope to still forever be able to do this, but even people that have mentioned Rocky Linux just kind of in passing, somebody with 11 views, 100,000 views, it doesn't matter. Trying to just call attention to anybody that's involved, make them feel like they belong. We really want to connect with anybody. Like I said, 10 viewers, 100,000 viewers, doesn't make a difference. Along with, I would say, onboarding as well, onboarding new users. There's some stuff I'm trying to work on with that in the wiki as well, and try and go through a flow of, hey, I'm new, I want to help. What can I do? We have some material like that out there, but we're looking at closer integrations within Mattermost itself for onboarding. We really want that to be kind of the portal that you jump straight into, where you can get you could check out on our wiki. We have a link directory to kind of everywhere that we have a presence and everywhere that we would like to interact with those of you. With that being said, if you are interested yourself in helping out with these kind of things, along with some event planning like this itself, shameless plug for the community team, feel free to join us on Mattermost or find Jorp, Jorp, if you're interested. With that being said, I will pass that off to Greg.
So everyone had such really good points. I think the only thing that I want to just reiterate is the last few months has been incredible. We went from nothing to 10,000+ people joining and asking to help and asking to be part of this. And I think at least 50% of the people that joined asked me personally, which, as you can imagine, made my Slack experience and email experience quite difficult. But and I apologize to everybody that I didn't get to responding properly to, or maybe timed out on and whatnot. But the goal of, again, what we're trying to do is to create an inclusive community and really grow that. I want everybody to feel like if they want to be part of this and they want to contribute, that they should. And we want to enable that. So that's really an important facet of this. And I get concerned because I know I personally couldn't respond to everybody who's reached out to contact me. But I want to encourage everybody to be persistent and don't, if whether it's me or somebody else or whatever, if we're not getting back to you, it's just because we're completely overwhelmed with requests. And this is a really good problem to have. And we want to encourage this. And I want you to keep overwhelming me and everyone in this team, please. So that's really the message that I wanted to get across. There was a couple things that we did to try to get ahead of this. I mean, as you can imagine, right from the beginning, this is a problem that we knew we needed to manage and try to get in front of. And we tried different things. One of which is we put a form up there out on a Google form. It's linked to from the main site if you want to be part of this. And we've had, I think, well over 1,000, if not well over 1,200 at this point, people that have actually signed up using that form, asking how can they help? How can they be a developer? How can they be a contributor to what it is that we're doing? And even though we can't go back and email every one of the people that have filled out that form, we just can't do that. And we can't do I'm old, so those of you that remember mail merges and whatnot, I don't know if that's still a thing anymore, but that was a really big thing in Excel and Outlook days. But with that being said, you can't do that anymore because we're going to end up being blocked for spamming. So we really don't have a good way of even reaching out to everybody at this point. But do know, please, that we actually use that list to search through whenever we're looking for somebody who has a particular skill set and we need help with something. We've used that list numerous times now to reach out to people and to contact people. So even if we're not getting back to you on it, please do fill it out. But the other thing to do is just jump right into chat.rockylinux.org. That's our Mattermost. As Jordan was saying, just jump into that. Jump into the forums. Jump into IRC. Start just chatting with us. Start talking with us. Start getting a lay of the land and feeling out what's happening and what channels you can join and be part of. And you'll start finding that if you go into each one of these individual channels, there's not quite as much, discussion, or rather I should say there's more focused discussion, and it's a little bit easier than to take part of what in what we're doing. So two predominant ways. First, fill out the form. Let us know you're interested in helping. Let us know what you can do, how much time you have, and so on and so forth. And two, jump into Mattermost and be part of what we're doing. Okay, Jordan, I hand the mic back over to you.
Awesome. Great. Let's see what else we got here. From Don Don. Wow, tongue twister. Via YouTube, we have, will a testing release be made available? And I will pass that to Lewis.
So there will be a testing release. The main hurdles right now that we're dealing with is actually getting the stuff built. We're still kind of going through the technical answers that we're going through some dependency help. But the actual answer is yes, there will be a testing release because I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to try it out. And, it's like there's so many people with different use cases out there. So we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to say, hey, XYZ didn't work, but this did before, stuff like that, because we want to make sure that the transition, from one to the next is easy for everybody. So we definitely do want a testing release. I can't really say when we'll have it all, have that completely ready, but we are definitely going full steam ahead. And myself and my team, we're going as quick as we possibly can, time zone constraints and everything. But so there definitely will be.
Okay, great. And sorry, Leigh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add a little bit of color to that as well. So, the community updates, we usually try and send those out around the third Monday of the month. This one, we're a little bit behind on because we wanted to wait and see what kind of progress we would make on an initial sort of very minimal ISO for testing purposes. And we were hoping to have some more information available, but that's probably going to be, we have to push that a little bit later than what we initially thought. We were shooting for March 31. I think a more optimistic update, we're going to be late on that, is probably going to be maybe a little bit closer towards the end of April. We don't have a firm date on that as well, but the reason to bring up the community updates is because, we try to make sure that we're letting everybody know what our status is with those builds and what our timeline is, because we know that the community has, there are people who need to figure out what they're going to run in production and when those things are going to be available. So that's why I bring up, just the community update. We wanted to wait a little bit on the March one because we were hoping to have a little more information, but we're now shooting for the end of next month. And part of the reason too, I think it's really important that everyone understand, if the only thing that we were trying to do was just pump out, a CentOS clone as fast as possible, we would have already done that by now, right? It's not like the most terribly difficult thing in the world to do that. Obviously, there are some challenges. The team's working incredibly hard. It's certainly not as straightforward as, just throwing some packages together. But the biggest reason for the delay is because we felt it was more important to have the infrastructure in place to support Rocky long term. So it's more than just the build infrastructure. So there are a few things that we had to do differently. Firstly, the way that we have our build infrastructure and where it's located and how we enable a wider set of people to contribute, we had to rethink how we put some things together. So that was part of it. So our build infrastructure is fundamentally different than it would be for other distributions. But then, there's a lot of things that we wanted to ensure was in place to make sure that the long-term prosperity was protected. Like everybody else in the community that was really caught off guard by some changes that some other popular distributions made, we are in a position where we want to ensure that whatever comes next doesn't have the same thing happen to them. So in order to do that, we had to come up with things like, a community charter and a team structure. We had to think about, okay, how are we going to make sure that moving forward, we're transparent with the community, we remain community owned and not beholden to the singular interests of any particular entity. So that's also had some downstream implications as well, such as how we do our actual build infrastructure, what the advisory board looks like. We wanted to make sure that whatever we come up with, what we put in place, with Rocky is something that long-term the community can place their trust in. So that's kind of a long-winded answer to, why are we taking a little bit extra time? There are some other, alternative distributions that we wish nothing but the best of luck for, but we've had to rethink things and do them a little bit differently. And we feel that this is the best way to ensure that the trust that the community has placed in us is responsibly and appropriately shepherded. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
It makes sense to us.
Yeah.
I recommend the YouTube comments tell us if it doesn't. So.
Yes, I'm seeing one yes. All right, that's all I needed. No. Thank you.
So I had to go and change my shirt real quick because I forgot Jordan demanded that we all wear our Rocky merchandise.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he held a gun to us. It was really aggressive and scary.
I forced him.
Yeah. So I had to make sure I'm complying properly. So I quickly ran it. So I missed the beginning of it. I apologize. But so Leigh, I don't know if you mentioned this, but this was really why we spent so much time and effort building the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation. And really what we're trying to do there is trying to ensure that the community has confidence and trust in the longevity of what it is that we're creating. And we don't want Rocky to be, as Leigh mentioned, beholden to a single organization or to even a single group of people. Each one of us here wants Rocky to outlast us, not like in life. I mean, outlast our interests, right? So I hope we all live much longer than Rocky. That came out really weird, didn't it? But with that being said, we're all going to go off and do some other things at some point, and we want other people to come in and be able to replace us and create a community that's going to outlive us. So that's the gist of what it is we're trying to do. And another thing that Leigh mentioned that I think was really, really important is we want the result of what it is we're building to be available to other organizations and even other distributions. If Cloud Linux, for example, wanted to leverage this and what we're creating, I absolutely think that that is a massive win, and I want them to. And I want other organizations who are thinking about making a Linux distribution not to have to start from scratch. All right, use what we're building, use what we have as a base foundation, extend it, add your value on top of that. Don't rebuild what we're doing. That's silly. Right? We're all coming here to solve the same problem. And that's what we need to be focusing on. And we want to make sure that everybody has the freedom, the confidence, and the capability to both be part of this as well as to fork it and make additional value out of this.
Somebody had asked in the YouTube comments whether or not Rocky Linux would always be free. And yes, that's part of kind of what Greg is getting at there. That's why we've taken the extra time and effort to set it up the way we have.
Yeah, and we have committed, that everything that we are legally able to make free and open to the community, we will make free and open to the community and license in a way that it remains that way. So yeah, just to be clear, it's not there's no plans for us to go take it sideways and make some private project off on the side. Everything we do and everything we create will be released to the community and made available for, like you said, for use, whatever you want to, right?
We want to make sure that as many people can, work on the project and contribute to the project as we feasibly can. So.
Awesome. Great. I have from John Massenter on YouTube. Is there a planned release cadence, quarterly, etc.? So for anybody that'd like to pick that up, go ahead.
I'm not sure I understand. I'm not sure I really understand the release cadence. Do they mean? I guess the question is do they mean like once like the next point release comes out upstream, how long is it taking for us to produce it? Or
I think that, the cadence will mirror that of the upstream distribution, right?
right.
That's really what you should get out of that. We will get faster and we'll make it to where, we'll have a shorter and shorter window of what that release cadence is. But, ultimately it's going to be lockstep. Right.
Right, and that's not to say either that there's always going to be hiccups too. That's just kind of how this world works.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm also seeing right here, Jackie.
Yeah, go on,
Chan.
say it.
All right, Jackie fucking Chan on YouTube. Hi guys. I was wondering, what do you think of ARM Linux devices such as the Librum 5, PinePhone, and PineBook Pro? Would you be willing to adapt Rocky to ARM someday? So I actually do have a PineBook Pro that I definitely bricked. So that's not the question for me. That's definitely a question for somebody else.
Well,
there goes any family-friendly status we may have held to this point.
Yeah, we just got demonetized. I don't know if we were making money off of this, but we definitely
revenue.
just got demonetized. Yeah.
Had to read it.
I want to address the question real quick because and I'm not going to give the details on each one of the devices because I don't have a huge amount of experience with them. But what I can tell you is, again, my experience comes from high performance computing, and from high performance computing, there's a lot of interest in ARM as of recent, and it is just gaining in popularity really quickly. So yes, I personally have an absolute interest in making sure that what we are building is completely compatible and even optimized as much as we can for ARM. Now, with that being said, ARM itself is not only aware of what we're doing, but has also chimed in several times. I know that they're hanging out in the Mattermost, and I've spoken to them a number of times about this. They have a lot of interest, and they've already offered help in terms of anything we need to really make sure that the ARM builds are right up front and center in terms of what it is we're releasing. And I asked the team to really make ARM a tier 1 distribution of what it is, or tier 1 architecture, of what it is we're releasing. So we should expect to see, the goal is to have both x86 as well as ARM on or as close to day one of release as absolutely possible. And I'm watching Lewis carefully just to make sure that he doesn't hate me after saying that.
No, I mean we are trying to parallel build everything, So that's so like when we actually do our builds, we're making sure that we send it to both x86 and AArch64 at the same time, because you never know, and plus too, just the way the system works is you send a build in, it's just going to do it. It's just going to pick up the build and be like, oh, I can do this architecture, and it's just going to do it. And so x86 and ARM are definitely like up there as they're definitely up on the top of the list of like, yeah, these are the ones that we're going to make sure that we have out there.
So, and I'd also be very interested, at least from a high performance computing perspective, of getting power into this mix. But interestingly enough, nobody from IBM has reached out. I don't know why that might be.
Yeah, that kind of leads into our SIGs, and I want to throw that over to Leigh, maybe to comment on the ability for additional architectures and how the community could potentially eventually help out once we have the SIG community built.
Yeah, so in terms of the actual architectures that we're working with, we have our builder hosts are x86 and ARM today. But any additional architecture, really the only thing that we need to make sure that those are enabled are just experts in that area that can help us build. So we had, for instance, we're working with somebody on with an organization as a principal's partner, and one of the things that they are going to be helping lead is our embedded SIG. So in terms of, are we going to build out support for PowerPC or Power or any other architectures? Ultimately, what we want to do is ensure that we enable the community. So, I don't know offhand if any of the current team members or developers that we're working with have background or access to those architectures. But if you're in the community and you're watching this and you're like, holy shit, I've got a pile of, whatever, I'd love to see Rocky run on that. Then ping us and we will, figure out how to help get those efforts, started.
I know I'm definitely very interested in getting Rocky working on Raspberry Pis specifically, because I know a lot of people sort of in and out of the sphere that were using CentOS or something similar on a cluster of Raspberry Pis and things like that, and they're definitely going to want to
Got one right there
to have a look. I've got about 3 in my drawer next to me, so
I think we all do. We just collect them like candy, right?
They're great. Hard to find. For me, the only brick and mortar is Microcenter, and it's across state, unfortunately.
It's worth it.
Yeah, at least you have
is.
one. I'm like 9
yeah.
hours away from a Microcenter.
Oh boy.
the only big one in the UK was
Greg.
Matlin, and that closed down like 3 years ago. So we
I'm
don't
pretty
even
sure-
have
Coffee
one out
cup.
here anymore.
I'm going to cut you off, Greg.
But by the end of this, I'm pretty sure Greg is going to have like a Rocky Linux mask and like sleeves and gloves. And
If you
Sandals
spot
on.
very closely, you'll see that he's about to pull out a Rocky Linux blanket that'll be draped over the sofa he's sat on.
a block level. Yeah, it's
Pet goes walking by in the background. It's got a Rocky Linux pet shirt on.
I'm just yelling to others in the house right now, asking to bring me all of my Rocky stuff.
Let's see. Oh, but Hayden, I mean, the Pi Foundation is in Cambridge. I don't know if that's near you. Sorry, I'm assuming that, but
It's about 3 hours away, so I wouldn't call it close, but it's not too far.
too bad. Day trip. So the next question, still related to architecture, which is nice. On that, let's see. Jason Bowen on YouTube. What architectures will be targeted initially? In particular, I'm curious about, I think that is PowerPC, PPC, right? Okay.
PowerPC.
Curious about PowerPC. Those.
Sorry, I missed the question. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
I got a message on Mattermost, so.
Oh, okay. What architectures targeted initially? In particular, curious about PowerPC 64.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously x86 and ARM are our main targets. At the very beginning, I actually wanted to have I actually did want to have PowerPC as a target also, but we just couldn't get anyone to actually step up or respond back to our inquiries like, hey, do you have hardware? I forget some of the folks that we had talked to. I can't remember their names, but we couldn't get any feedback from that. And so unfortunately, PowerPC isn't there as like, it's not going to be there day one. I would like to see it in the future, though. I mean, I would like to see it at some point in the future where we actually do have it there as, part of our regular, release cycle at the end of the day, because our upstreams do. So I want to make sure we try to at least match that.
Okay, great. Thanks. And next, I see here, is Rocky Linux a drop-in replacement for CentOS? From Mad Ezra 64 on YouTube. Yes. That one I can answer. Yes.
As much as we possibly can, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. What else we have?
Got to give the
here?
qualifiers, because if you say yes to that, somebody's going to be like, I couldn't do a yum update and have it switch over.
Absolutely. Let's see. We have, how much time do you plan to support a LTS version from Viago Estev? Sorry if I butchered that. I'm very sorry. On YouTube. Yes, we plan on tracking the dot releases of RHEL. So that includes a 10-year cycle for each major version, correct, guys?
Yeah. So yeah, if it goes end of life upstream, it's going to end of life for us too.
So then, Lewis, what are we expecting to support the EOL for Rocky Linux 8, or long-term support for?
Like, was the question how long?
Yeah, like when's the end date for that? As we're expecting it to be now. Just
I believe the end of life for 8 is in 2028. I'm sure someone can correct me on that.
Yeah.
But that's essentially the entire life cycle of that release. So
right.
So we will be following upstream. So like if they shorten something, if they release a new major and it's a shorter cycle, we have to follow that too. Right?
But as it stands now, we're tracking what they have. So
right,
everyone can assume that if it's something RHEL's doing, we're doing it.
Yes.
Unless it's cutting the EOL.
It's May 31st, 2029
cool.
for the EOL right now.
Oh, okay. That's a year longer than I
Full support. Right. Full support is 2024. Extended is 2029.
Okay.
Sweet.
Awesome. So for my security folks and possibly development, I have a question from Dan Sullivan on YouTube. Is the turnaround time for upstream security updates still 24 to 48 hours?
Rob, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So I don't think we've actually walked through that. That will in large part depend on where we are in the cycle. If we've gotten it down to where it's an automated build, yes, that absolutely makes sense. Next month when we put out a beta, probably not.
Yeah, we want it to be as secure a distribution as possible, right? It's called the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation for a reason. And if we don't have security patches quickly, it can't be used by enterprise, right? And that, so, initially it will be prioritizing the high risk vulnerabilities and the high risk patches and everything to make sure that we can get it to the community as quickly as possible if there is a large or potentially damaging vulnerability. But hopefully we'll be working with the community and even upstream to ensure that we can get the security updates available as quickly as humanly possible.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're going to be following like whatever shows up upstream, right? And we're going to have a way of seeing like, oh, they just updated. Okay, let's pull their stuff, immediately do a build and see where it goes. There may, it's rare, but I'm sure there'll be cases where we have to heavily patch like immediately. We have to like patch something like immediately. Like one example I could think of, I forget the name of the vulnerability, but it was so bad that the upstream that the downstream couldn't wait for the upstream.
Probably Heartbleed, yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't. They couldn't wait on upstream, so they're like, okay, well, we know how to patch this, or we found the patch, or whichever, and so they patched it themselves to get it out there for the time being. Which there's going to be probably cases we're going to run into when we do that. Like, I think that's just a fact of life.
That sounds like the BSD SSH one potentially then.
Yeah, I agree. That was part of the
That
SSH.
one would come out early.
Yeah.
So I have my next question from SyncBitsQ on YouTube, who said, apologies for the repeat question. No, that's good. Just as a reminder to everybody, if we haven't seen your question, just please repeat it. There's, definitely a lot. We're not, it's hard to keep track. So definitely if you put something there, feel free to say it again. You're not spamming. It's fine.
There's still a list of like 20 plus questions that we're looking at here for trying to get through. So
yes. But anyway, SyncBitsQ has asked, what are the more serious competitors to the Rocky Linux initiative? And if any, is there any outreach to consolidate? So I will pass that on to Greg and Leigh.
Yeah. Sorry, my internet was kind of flaky for a second. Was that to you, Greg, or me?
It's to both of us, but you go ahead and take lead.
Yeah, sure. So, the way that we really look at competitors is, I don't. Our mission is to build the absolute best RHEL-compatible operating system that the community can rely on. But it's also to build the community and support the community. So what we're really focused on is building the community and doing the best that we can in terms of our releases and to enable the community. So, if anybody that is out there that is building, an alternative distribution would like to reach out to us, they want to get involved, we will totally support that as best as we can. We're really focused on doing the absolute best that we can, not only for ourselves from a technical perspective, but for the community as well. So we really don't see it in terms of like this combative, perspective where, we have competitors that we're trying to beat or whatever like that. Man, like if you want to consider yourself a competitor, go right ahead. That's awesome. You are also free to hop in our Mattermost and contribute or take advantage of stuff that we have put out there, right? So like, if we build and release something and it's open source, then that's great, man. Do your thing. that's not, but like a competitor thing is really not the way we look at it. That's my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's the beauty of open source, right? Like, we're not competing against one another. Everybody is building a binary compatible alternative to an operating system, right? And everything that they do, we can use. Everything we do, they can use, right? That's what open source is about, right? And so, while we may have different vision and we may have different, drivers and motivators, ultimately it's increasing the community knowledge of Linux as a whole, right? And it's making it to where everybody can use it more and better. And ultimately, we're in this position because there was one good viable candidate that's no longer a good viable candidate. And so to me, I view it as a very good thing to have 2 or 3 viable candidates so that we can always have a good, open, non-corporate controlled operating system. Sorry, Greg, I'm sure I took some of your steam there.
No. I like it. I like everyone chiming in and putting in their perspectives. I mean, you both have now said it better than I was going to. So you guys nailed it, right? This is we're not. Yeah, there's nothing I can add. I mean, we're not competing. If somebody wants to join, if somebody wants to steal this or take it or whatever, great, fantastic. If there is another project or other projects that are thinking of doing this, please, you're invited. Welcome to please join us, be part of what we're doing, and then take the outcome of that and go add your value to it and spin it off into a different direction or whatever you need, or rebrand it. We don't care. I think that's a great thing, and I think that would help. Or if you just want to duplicate the effort, that's great too, right? And I know that we've already worked with several members of the Fedora community, and they've been tremendously supportive and helpful in terms of what it is that we're doing. And I mean, that really just kind of demonstrates it from my perspective. And this goes to Red Hat as well, right? Red Hat is doing exactly what they need to be doing as a company and as a source for these rebuilds to exist. We're not competing with RHEL. That's not our intention. Our intention is to, as we're doing this, if we find any issues, to push this back into CentOS Stream, which will then feed back into RHEL, and we can actually create a full cycle here, a circle. That's what we're trying to do here, right? So I think it's really important that we see it as such, and we're all in this together, and we're all trying to make this work together. And the more that we come together to do this, the more stable all of our projects are going to be.
This project requires a substantial amount of time from each of us. We wouldn't be here if we didn't firmly believe in open source. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to. This is a passion for all of us.
Yeah, because I can promise you nobody on the screen right now is getting a cut check from anybody apart from the day job, right? We're all here on Friday night at 7 p.m. or, whatever your time zone is, because we legitimately want to do this, and we legitimately want to see the project succeed and to give the community back what they originally had.
So I want to bring something up real quick. I'm sorry, I may have overspoke someone, and I apologize if I did. Kriggy and Eric bring up a couple really good points, which is the phrase competitor seems to be suboptimal. There's got to be a better one. And Eric responds in alternatives. Could be a better word here. So if we take the name or the term competitor out of that question and replace it with alternatives, yeah, there are absolutely alternatives to what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're creating. And as Ben said, the more alternatives there are, the better. We are all compatible with each other, right? Going from one to the next, if anything happens, just should give everybody more confidence in the stability of the platforms that they're leveraging, right? CentOS kind of pivoting and changing direction. The fact that we have about it, when they released it, it was about a year. Now it's obviously less than a year. But that much time to basically for us to come up to speed and other projects to come up to speed is actually it's a good thing. It gives us all the ability to kind of provide something that is again compatible with CentOS 8. And as a result of that, all the people that are currently on CentOS 8 actually have almost nothing to worry about. And if there's one big message that I kind of wish I can stand on top of the hill and yell out or write up in big letters in the sky or something along those lines, and it's all of those organizations that are currently on CentOS 8, you don't need to worry. Not only are we working on this, but there are other organizations working on this, and whether it's us or whether it's somebody else, you're covered. You don't need to worry. You don't need to change architectures. You don't need to change and retool your infrastructure. I've spoken now to a number of very large enterprises that before we spoke or before an introduction was made, they actually thought, oh no, CentOS is out, and they're completely retooling for another distribution, a non-RPM distribution. And so when I came and I said, we're working on this. Other organizations are working on this. We got you covered. Their response was, oh my God, thank you. And we don't need to continue investing in what it is that we've been, dreading, which is an absolute complete retooling and swap out of their infrastructure. Whether it's us or whether it's somebody, a different project, and there's a few of them out there. And just to answer the question pedantically, or accurately, right? There's Alma Linux from Cloud Linux, which I believe are the same company that did cPanel. There's Oracle. Although I haven't heard of a huge number of people after what Red Hat did thinking of jumping into Oracle, but it does exist. And there's other ones, and I'm blanking out on some of their names right now, and I apologize. But each one of these projects deserves credit. And honestly, I personally think the best case scenario would be for us all to work together. But in either case, it doesn't matter because we're solving the same problem. We're all going to be fairly, if not completely, compatible with each other. And anybody who's concerned that CentOS is pivoting and that they have to move their enterprises, don't worry about it. There are multiple organizations and projects that are going to be solving this. And just within Rocky, there's probably at least 100 organizations that's representing the contributors here, the people here, and organizations that have reached out to us to partner with us, to sponsor what we're doing, and to ensure a very long life of what it is that we're creating. Obviously, you can look on our sponsors page in terms of corporations that have given us, the thumbs up that they want to be public about sponsoring us. But what I can tell you is there are numerous sponsors that we have spoken to, as well as still continuously speaking with, that are not listed on the page. That's not all of them. That's not near all of them. So again, there's a lot of support in what we're doing, and as a result of that, this is going to be successful.
That extends as well, not to just on-prem, right, but cloud. So we have spoken to all of the major hypervisors, hyperscalers, excuse me, and if you are running CentOS today in Google Cloud or Azure, AWS, wherever you are running Cent today, on-prem or in the cloud, Rocky is going to be a first-class citizen at those locations as well. So, if you're wondering, oh my goodness, what am I going to do for my cloud distribution, you'll be covered there as well.
Yeah, can I just point out the beauty of open source in this, though? Like, if any proprietary operating system vendor decided that they wanted to go do this, everyone would be stuck with that decision, right? And our ability to, as a community, to come together and build what we need, as opposed to what the corporations think we want or think we need or what would maximize revenue, is just, like, honestly the reason why I'm personally sitting in this chair talking to you guys today, right? So, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional over here.
Must be the iced tea.
That's it.
Bojangles. Sorry, no, we're not supposed to do brands.
No.
I think you
All
can
right,
on YouTube. I don't know the rules.
I don't either. But now is a good time. Maybe you have noticed we've had two others join us while we were giving that very, very long answer to that question, and also answering a lot of other questions in the process. So very cool. So Mustafa, I will let you start off.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks, Jordan. Hello, everybody. My name is Mustafa Al-Ghazan, and I'm currently in the release engineering team together with Louis. And I've been leading the development of distro build and SRPM proc that we're basing our build and import infrastructure on. We've been working hard with the team, including Skip and Sharif, to ensure that once we get the groundwork out of the way, we should just be able to do mass imports and builds. Where we are right now is that we've achieved that goal with the new methods and how we debrand, and that we made debranding crowdsourceable and open source, unlike the other distributions. We've already built the core package group, and we're now working steadily to build Anaconda and its dependencies. And I can actually say that the plan has worked better than expected. Like huge modules with hundreds of packages, like we've been only experiencing a few failures, and that's something because of the upstream, something the upstream has done. So I actually believe in the groundwork, and when we open source everything that we have, all the metadata and the packages that exist in which repo and everything, forking a new distro from upstream should be easier, even if I lose focus, Lewis loses focus, Rocket Linux just gets absorbed. So even if we're behind schedule, I'd say that the groundwork will make us able to just catch up, and I say we're en route to that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now going to pass it to Brian.
Hi, sorry I missed the introductions earlier. I'm Brian Clemens. I'm a project manager for Rocky, which generally means working in the background, facilitating the use of our project management tools, as well as secretarial and administrative tasks.
Okay, great. Thank you. So continuing on with our questions here, Rodrigo from YouTube. How about OpenSCAP profiles for Rocky Linux? Do you have any plans for that, making Rocky Linux more suitable for companies under PCI, HIPAA, CIS, and any of those types of compliances? Security folks?
Yeah, so we absolutely do plan on using OpenSCAP profiles. Those are called, or they've transitioned now to being called compliance as code. We do currently have a couple of people that have started on compliance as code profiles. It just hasn't progressed much past that at this point.
Yeah, ultimately they need to be, we need to have an operating system before we can validate that the operating system is up to compliance. But, there are a lot of compliance as code profiles that we can work off of and relatively easily convert that to a Rocky compatible profile. So we have people working on that. A few people, anybody who's interested in contributing, definitely hit us up, because we need more help on that too. So,
and I can kind of say too, like, you can go to cisecurity.org, and those benchmarks that apply to either Red Hat or CentOS right now still would apply to us. Like you could still go through that PDF, and just about everything still applies. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, the profiles are honestly
the profiles are like the big thing. Yeah.
And getting those profiles, like if you want to contribute, it's super easy. You go through those profiles and you do regex replacements. Find CentOS replaced with Rocky, right? And those sorts of things. It really is almost that simple. So yeah, but there's a ton of them, and so yeah, any help anybody wants to do would be great.
Yep.
Well, especially testing,
the furthest part we got was in coming up with a group of 4 or 5 that we were going to start with, given how many there are. If you want to pop into the Mattermost security channel, I'm more than happy to talk with some of the other people that have started working on those.
Okay, awesome. So Carter Peel on YouTube, what licensing issues in particular that were mentioned will present difficulties during the migration from RHEL 8 to Rocky 8? That is open for anybody really. I don't know who to direct that to.
I believe it's in your EULA for RHEL 8. So I'm not positive on this. It's been a while since I've ran RHEL in production or looked at the EULA, but I do believe that you are limited to use of those binaries while you are paying for your entitlement subscription. So you could do it, but you'd still have to keep paying Red Hat.
Okay, great. And now we have, this one's definitely also for you, Greg, sorry. How did you come up with the name Rocky?
Oh, that's a good one. So early on in the CentOS days, actually pre-CentOS, was an operating system that we were building called Chaos Linux. And the focus of Chaos Linux was to try to create the first truly community-based RPM distribution of Linux. And this was back in 2002-ish, 2003-ish, somewhere around there. And we started assembling a group of people, a group of developers to start doing this. And it was about then when Red Hat decided to end of life all of their freely available Linux distributions across the board in one day. So Red Hat Linux 7. I think they were at 7.3 or 7.4, somewhere around there, was end of life. Red Hat Linux 8 was end of life, and Red Hat Linux 9, which was only a few months old, if I remember correctly at that point, was end of life, all with no notice. So we were kind of faced with a problem, considering we weren't at the point where bootstrapping this new operating system was. Now, I know I'll get to the point of the question here in just a second. We were bootstrapping this new operating system, but it wasn't bootstrapped yet. So we were still leveraging RHEL. And so one of the team members, his name was Rocky McGaw, said, well, I've got this auto builder and this package builder, and we've got the Red Hat, Enterprise Linux source RPMs. I'll just go pull them out of Red Hat Network and just throw them at the auto builder, and let's see what comes out the other side. And we started doing that, and we ended up having a rebuild of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And we actually didn't even release it right away because we didn't think that there was much of a desire for it, but we did talk a little bit about it. We were going to call it Chaos EL for Enterprise Linux. And the name CentOS was proposed, and we ended up going with that after we decided to release it. And shortly after that, Rocky died. He passed away. And he never got to see really how CentOS kind of became and grew, and the original idea, what it would end up to be. And so when we were talking about naming, as a matter of fact, when we first spun this up, we were in a Slack for something else, for HPCNG, which is a Slack that I created to come up with ideas for next generation high performance computing infrastructures. And we were talking about what to name it, because at that point I don't remember what we were calling it, but it was just something like New CentOS or something. I don't remember. Maybe someone else remembers better than I do. And we kept thinking about names and brainstorming names. And then somebody asked me about, just what was the story on CentOS? What happened? And as soon as I got to Rocky, I was like, oh, that's it. And so the name means something. I know a lot of people complain about the name, and they say to a lot of people it means disturbance or not stable or jagged or something along those lines. But it also means incredibly stable. It means mountains. It means, it actually has meaning to the project as well, and that's why it was important to name this Rocky in my mind. So that's where the name Rocky and Rocky Linux comes from. He was a good guy, and it's an honor to name this after him.
And it has nothing to do with a very famous movie character, just to make that clear.
But the memes are pretty good, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody else kind of think about this and get Eye of the Tiger stuck in your head?
Maybe at the beginning.
We should open up all these Q&As with that as our opening music. That won't make anybody mad, I'm sure.
We'll consult legal.
Copyright perspective.
Yeah,
we could do a cover, right? That's fair use.
Yeah.
I don't think covers are fair use. Just
yeah, you have to pay for fair
parody.
Parody
covers.
Yeah.
Parodies. There's okay. That will be stay tuned for a community project of a parody of
Yeah, as the GRC guy, I should not have recommended that in the slightest.
That's all
No,
you
no, you
can.
should not have.
Let's see. Okay, so something that was sort of answered a little bit before, but is still good to touch on. Will Rocky Linux remain free for good? Can the user assume and really use Rocky Linux without the need to worry about migrating to some other system in the future like we have to right now? That's from Diego Webb on YouTube.
So yes, I think that was the early one.
Yes.
Yeah. No. Again, the purpose of what we're doing right now is that you don't need to migrate right now, and that, I think Greg mentioned that a second ago. Yeah. We want to give you an upgrade path. We want to give you something that you can very easily convert to, so that you don't have to do a bunch of legwork right now.
Thank you. Another from Diego Webb as well. This one's a bit tricky, perhaps, but will Rocky Linux be able to directly update CentOS 7, or will the user be required to update to CentOS 8 first? I think they mean, rather than a rebuild.
Yeah. So
Yes. So I can actually
go ahead, Liz.
my answer to that is no upgrades, because at that point this is just my opinion. I consider it unsupported at that point. At one point, this actually was a very common theme for a very long time, at least on the CentOS side, which was a lot of people would ask, like, well, can I upgrade from this to this? And we would always say, like, no, it's unsupported. And then when we would ask people, like, can the community come up with a tool or something to help us, get from A to B? Crickets. We would always get crickets. We just constantly. And our thing basically was, okay, you need to talk to Red Hat, because Red Hat has a tool called Leap. And of course, with any type of major upgrades like this, doesn't matter if you have Leap or not, it can easily be problematic. Not everyone's systems are cookie cutter, or not everyone's systems are built the same as the next door neighbors or whatever. It's generally not like that. My recommendation, though, is if you're wanting to go to Rocky 8 at some point, is you should do a migration. You should build a new CentOS 8 box, get all your stuff like built out or restore, backup, restore, whatever you got to do, and then when the time comes, you can convert the system to Rocky 8. That would be my recommendation. Now, that's not to say that we won't ever have an upgrade tool. That could easily be part of one of our SIGs, or someone can step up. Someone or someone's, not just one person, can step up and actually make something to make it happen. Because at least back in the day, I remember when 7 came out, that was a common question. How do I get from 6 to 7? Like, well, if you want a zombie system, go ahead, because that's when System D came around. I would imagine it to be a little bit easier, but I keep hearing horror stories and I keep seeing broken systems left and right. And that's why my opinion is I wouldn't support the system if you were doing a 7 to 8 upgrade.
Can I ask a follow-up question, less about the upgrade and more about, will there be a Rocky 7? Are we going to have a binary compatible Rocky 7?
That's not our initial goal was to just do 8.
Well, I would follow that up and say, is there a need to do Rocky 7? And from what I can tell right now, all indications seems like the life of CentOS 7 is going to continue. It's not being cut short. And as a result of that, I don't think that there's a pressing urgency to do a Rocky 7. But if anything were to change, and if there was a necessity there, yeah, I would think that there would be a number of people that would step up and want to be part of that and want to push that.
I could see it being asked, and it hasn't yet. So yeah.
Good.
That actually was asked at one point in one of the Mattermost channels too. Probably a few days ago, I think.
Ninja Trader on YouTube says, not a question, but let's make a promise to truly make Rocky Linux a community Linux and never make the same mistakes again. Yes, everybody here 1000% agrees with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Greg probably has a couple of words on that. Just a couple.
I'm gonna be brief. I'll try. But yeah, no, that's exactly the goal of what it is that we're all trying to do. There was a comment on, until I sell it for $5 million. But no, we're putting in precautions. So I'll sell myself, right? If Red Hat wants to offer to buy me for $5 million, cool, done. But if they can't buy Red Hat, they can't buy Rocky, it's not for sale. There's no way to do it. So that's what we are. That's what we're building up, right? This is the whole point of this, is to build the confidence in the community of what it is we're doing. And the second piece of this would be, let's just say something did happen, which I don't see that it will, can, or should, but let's say something did happen. Again, we're publishing everything that we're doing in such a way that somebody else will be able to pick this up and run with us. So again, we're really safeguarding this as carefully as we possibly can. And what happened with CentOS and how it got, I used the word acquired by Red Hat, and I know that it's not the right word for this, but it did get acquired by Red Hat, and Red Hat was in control of it. And I'm not, not pointing any fingers or anything, but when CentOS 8 kind of came around, all of a sudden, a lot of the packages necessary to rebuild the operating system kind of were taken out, right? And a lot of things were kind of pulled, and it made it very difficult to do what it is that we're doing right now. Part of our charter, part of what it is that we're doing is we're making promises, and we are expecting to be held fully accountable to those promises. Taking our charter, we're going to be distributing our charter on our mirror with every operating system release. And the point of this is such that it doesn't get lost, right? You won't have to go to the Wayback Machine or the archive to find out what was our original goals and charters and whatnot. No, this is going to be right there on our mirror. Every server in the world that's going to be mirroring our code is going to be mirroring our goals, our values, our promises, and everything that we're trying to do. We want to be held accountable if anything goes awry, and if anything needs to be corrected. So that's the community's job, and we take this role, with knowledge and awareness of what we're getting ourselves into, and we do that voluntarily, and we take it very seriously.
Yeah, and I'll point out, or maybe ask Greg to add some additional color around the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation was built to protect Rocky, right? That's the whole reason why it exists, and the structure that he's built out is there to ensure that Rocky maintains its independence and maintains its community focus and its community drive. And there has been a lot of work and a lot of very expensive lawyers to get that to where it is today. But I don't know, Greg, if you had anything else on that.
Again, a lot of this is the organization, but a lot of this is also the promises, right? And making sure that we're accountable to those promises and upkeeping the confidence and faith in the community. So we are going to be writing up, we have our community charter, we're going to be writing up some more documentation and whatnot. And again, all of this is going to be on our mirrors. So it is going to be, it's going to persist for as long as people are using this. It's going to persist. And I think that is what is critically important. The mission of what we're doing, the promises, and that commitment.
Awesome. L. Grulon from YouTube asks, will there be scripts to move from RHEL, Oracle, CentOS, etc. to Rocky? And I will point that to release engineering.
Yeah, we do want something like that in the future. I mean, that's obviously later into the future. We do want to do that. Our main goal is just to get 8.3, 8.4 out and have the ability for people to cut over to it. And then once, that seems to be okay and things are settling, that's when I think we would probably feel comfortable, building something out that allows people to go, come from the other stuff, not just CentOS, like, come from RHEL, come from Oracle, or whichever. Because we have to be able to address all their, at least we have to be able to address all their, stuff that they might have done, differently or whichever. So, but I mean, of course, if someone wants to step up and make something in the future ahead of us, go, I'm all for it too,
Okay, great, thanks. So ESW from Mattermost asks, Red Hat has a repo for, I think that is the real-time kernel, kernel-RT, correct? Yes, okay. I've seen a prior mention of this for a SIG, but I don't know how, I don't know if this would be in a Rocky repo since it's just a dbrand recompile from git.centos.org and is currently in a Red Hat repo. Has this been considered?
So I noticed it. I noticed it personally, and I kind of thought about it. I haven't completely thought about it. I mean, if it's there in our upstreams, I don't see a problem with having a way for our users to get to it. I mean, so I mean, if our stuff can build it, then by all means we should probably then we should at least provide it, especially if our upstreams are. And what sucks is like I noticed it probably 2 days ago, and I was like, oh, I completely forgot about this, and then I forgot about it again. So I mean, I'm definitely open to providing the real-time kernel up there, as long as our tooling will pull all that stuff, which I'm sure it will, no problems.
Awesome. I have Ezekiel. Hello. Any chance of a utility for easily installing and configuring NVIDIA drivers for us desktop users? I know that there is currently a desktop SIG, but
my generic answer is there is a website called elrepo.org that provides the packages and the repos to do that stuff already. So I'm not, I'm not opposed to having our own stuff, but I kind of don't want to duplicate efforts. The EL repo guys were actually scrambling too when the stream stuff happened, because they have to recompile their stuff aggressively because of all the ABI changes they're having. Sorry, I'm getting a little technical, but they're kind of in a similar boat to everybody else, where it's like, oh great, now we're having to deal with this. And so EL repo has always been a trusted source, especially in the CentOS community, for getting drivers like the NVIDIA driver, and also supporting old hardware that basically stopped being supported on certain major releases. So when 7 came out, a bunch of stuff basically just got obsoleted, knew it no longer work. But EL repo is like, okay, well, we're going to provide the drivers for that. Same thing with 8. They did the same thing and provided extra drivers. And the NVIDIA drivers are definitely always on their roadmap. They're always providing stuff like that. There are other repositories out there that provide that too. I just have a bigger trust in EL repo because they provide a lot more than just the NVIDIA stuff. But that's just kind of my 2 cents there.
So we get this question quite a bit around various aspects. I think the thing that really should be kind of defined is Rocky is not a new distro. We're a bug for bug version of RHEL. We are looking at aspects of creating different SIGs to spin off stuff that then can kind of incorporate some of that stuff, but we're not changing RHEL and then pushing out a new OS. That's not what this is. So any of those where it's, asking if we're going to support some other aspect or facet that RHEL doesn't, or including different drivers or things like that, that won't be a part of the normal Rocky release.
Yep, and to add to that, I know there was a question I saw before about desktop environments. I believe the default for a graphical server is GNOME by default. So, we will be following along with that. But there is a desktop special interest group, so you're more than.
If we're producing like some packages, like I can understand, right? But if there's like trusted sources, that's when the desktop SIG can like sit down and be like, hey, like here's all this, here's a way of combining all this stuff together. And that's very common with a lot of these SIGs in other communities too, where they combine other stuff from other sources that are considered trusted.
Yeah, ultimately the upstream already has all these packages built, right? And it will be part of our repos as well. When you're talking about things like that, I saw a question around overt or Ceph. That they're a little bit deeper, but ultimately that's just part of that team and that package's desire and that want. They're open source too. You're welcome to go help them out and help them work with Rocky, kind of thing. But ultimately, it should all just kind of work. It's in the repos.
Yep, and there's also EPL too for certain things. I believe it's been a while, but I fiddled with XFCE on a CentOS GUI desktop I had in the past, and results are mixed. So that's definitely something to chat about in the desktop SIG. So next question comes from Haruki on YouTube. Is there any plan for a Rocky Linux trademark guideline for third parties? I will get that to Greg. That sounds legal-ish.
Trademark guidelines for third parties. So what I will say is, in terms of sponsorship, it's something that we give media kits out to. So if somebody wants to sponsor, you can leverage and get a media kit, which would include rights to use trademarks and whatnot. If you are not looking to sponsor and you're just interested for whatever reason, and you need either a sub license for the trademark or anything like that, please just reach out and contact us.
Awesome. Dan Sullivan on YouTube, will Rocky Linux come with and support SE Linux profiles that are POLP? I'm not sure what that means, but compatible with Containerd and Docker.
Yes, basically. Again, it's kind of what Rob had been saying. Anything that is available in the upstream will be available downstream. There's probably some exceptions that I'm not thinking of in various use cases or something. But for the most part, anything that you can run on CentOS, you can run on Rocky.
Jordan, just for your knowledge,
Yes,
POLP is principle of least privilege.
Oh, okay. I knew what that was. I just didn't know the abbreviation. Okay. I'm searching this here and seeing
obscure security acronyms. Gosh.
PLOP.
PLOP.
PLOP is good.
PLOP.
I should have just said PLOP. I was seeing PLOP boot manager for Linux, and I was like, wait, what is going on? Okay, so it's not that. Got it.
Security is the worst for that. We use the acronym SOC in like 8 different meanings in security, and it's
And then a shorthand for a number of others.
Yeah.
We really are terrible.
Let's see here. On YouTube, Jesus asks, I don't know how this currently works with CentOS and RHEL, but would Rocky Linux be reaching out to different vendors like HP for MapR installation and validation, or would it be on those vendors to test?
So I'll take that. It will be up to the vendors to test. If we have people in various SIGs or in the community that wish to do those testing, I think that's great. And HP or whoever may end up joining some of those SIGs for some of their applications, or joining an existing SIG and bring their application to these SIGs for testing and whatnot. I know we've had conversations about EDA and an EDA-focused SIG. Most of the software that people run in EDA-focused workflows are commercial, proprietary, and well, to be blunt, extraordinarily expensive. But with that being said, there's still an EDA SIG where we're going to be helping to validate a lot of that, document those applications, and so on and so forth. So,
what is EDA, just for the edification of everybody online?
I believe it's electronic design automation. This is what chip manufacturers and silicon vendors use to basically prototype, template, and evaluate their chip designs and silicon designs before it goes to fab.
Yeah, that
totally
was
just for those people.
Just for the people online.
Yeah,
I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah,
I want to make sure you knew, really.
Yeah. I just had to test your knowledge.
You knew it.
Yeah, just like that.
EDA actually, just as a quick side note, EDA is a really interesting one. I always knew that it was expensive, but I didn't know how much. Just recently was speaking to someone in EDA who said that it's routine for them to spend 5x the cost of hardware on their software stack. So if they spend 10K on a server, they expect to spend 50K on the software that's going to be installed on that server.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a big market.
Yeah.
Seriously, like just in general.
It's almost like there's a couple of Fortune 500 companies that just do nothing but that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This one is 100% for Greg because they say it's for Greg. It's El Grulan again. What are the plans for Rocky and HPC? And this one is particularly for Greg.
Well, my background is predominantly HPC. So I would say specifically there's no plans for Rocky to be an HPC, but I will say there's an HPC SIG. And I know that there's a lot of organizations that have now reached out to us and talked to us about running Rocky within their HPC environments. And HPC has definitely been a big use case and vertical and a lot of interest around Rocky. But with that said, Rocky's very generic in terms of how it's going to work for enterprises, for verticals, and for different types of use cases. So I wouldn't word it as that Rocky has plans for HPC, rather that HPC has plans for Rocky. That sounds so corny, I know, but
ominous, very ominous.
We should put that on a t-shirt.
HPC has plans for Rocky. I like it. Let's see.
I think we actually caught up with 7 minutes left in our chat.
Oh no,
there's more.
We got more. So Don, you really want me to mess up that name, don't you? That's a tongue twister. On YouTube, any target date? This is for release engineering, by the way. Any target date for start of packaging efforts? When would the build infrastructure be complete?
Sorry, there was a lot to unpack with that question. Can you say it again?
I was muted. Any target date for the start of packaging efforts is one part of it, and the other part is when would the build infrastructure be complete?
So we have a good chunk of that. That's the infra like there. We're just trying to get all of our stuff like actually working. We actually do have anyone can actually go to kojidev.rockylinux.org and they can actually see when our packages are being built and see where that's actually going if anyone's actually interested. We've already I think we've already built out the core package group. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Mustafa, but I'm pretty sure we have the core group and probably a few other extra things because we were making sure stuff was working. So I actually can't remember what day we actually started to start building stuff, the actual packages themselves. We've just been going day by day doing stuff. So if you want to continue on that, Mustafa, please.
Yeah, I can say a bit about that. Actually, the packaging process mostly is just patching out or debranding upstream branding from the packages. And we're actually almost done with all the packages. So it's definitely started and almost finished. So we only need to import the other packages. But as I said in my intro, the core package group is actually done. And we're working with Perl now, and with the new modularity system, it's kind of it's a bit tricky, but we're getting there. So it's definitely started, and we've come a long way. And we also want to expose distro build as soon as possible, but we're still working on with some structures that is prone to change. So we're just waiting a bit on that.
Awesome. Thanks. This is just a quick one. I think it was already answered maybe in the chat. Craig is very good at multi-threading here. Somebody asked if t-shirts will be available on Amazon. And just to reiterate for anybody that can't see the chat and is watching the video, we will speak to our and see about that. But as of right now, they are not. They are available if you go to rockylinux.org and click store. You'll be redirected there. RHS on YouTube. As there's many users that rely on CentOS currently for web hosting environments, I'm wondering if any of the major players in control panels, cPanel, Direct Admin, for example, have reached out to Rocky. And that's for anybody that, no, Greg is nodding no.
I haven't seen anything.
No. Pintuz on YouTube, what if Red Hat reverted their decision about CentOS at some point? Would that affect Rocky in a negative way, or would that not have much effect on the project? That's a very good question.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and Lewis and the dev team, Mustafa, you guys may hate me for this, but here's how I see it. Is we have so many people that are supporting and interested in what it is that we're doing, that if Red Hat were to do something to make the sources unavailable, we would basically have to pivot, and we would end up forking the operating system. And there would just be there'd be no other route. And this would do a tremendous disservice to the community, to us, but also to Red Hat. There's a lot of value that Red Hat has by having this community wanting and tracking exactly what Red Hat is doing, because there's an on-ramp both directions, right? Having that complete binary compatibility between Red Hat and us, and vice versa, us and Red Hat, means that Red Hat can be charging for support for systems that can on-ramp directly from Rocky to RHEL. And that binary compatibility, that absolute compatibility, is a benefit in both directions. So I would suggest that in general, that would be a very bad thing to happen. But at the same token, if it did happen, I think we'd have no choice, and the community would have no choice but to fork Red Hat Enterprise Linux at that point. And I just saw my face get really big, and that scared me.
I don't
took
know
that
why
as meaning what happened if RHEL took back the changes to Cent.
Oh,
yeah.
completely.
Yeah, what happened if they decided to do long-term Cent again?
Oh, sorry.
we
I
get two answers out of one question. It's great.
I answered the question that I was thinking, but yeah, I guess it's not all about me. Okay. So, if they, so at this point, I think the inertia has been created, and I hate to call it the damage has been done, but it has been, right? There's a confidence that has now been burned, and it's unfortunate, but it's also fortunate at the same time. I think this community needs to exist. This project needs to exist. And if that's what it took for this project to get going, then that's what it took. But I think it would be a mistake now for Red Hat and or the CentOS team to pivot back to what they were doing, because they've lost some credibility in terms of, and they've lost some trust. And if they do it again, I think, I don't think it would add anything to it. And I think what they're doing with CentOS is in fact valuable. I think CentOS Stream has a lot of value in terms of where they're bringing it. And I don't think they should change it back. I think what we're doing belongs in the community and not under the umbrella of Red Hat. CentOS Stream, as it is moving into, absolutely belongs within the umbrella of Red Hat. Although I do have to say I have a little bit of a pet peeve now about the name. It is not really community, as they've demonstrated, and it's definitely not enterprise where it's going. So the Cent part of CentOS doesn't exactly match anymore. So it'd be nice if they rename it, but if they don't, it's their prerogative. But I do feel as though that there's a lot of benefit for what they're doing and where it's going now. And as I said before, if we find issues in Red Hat as we are rebuilding this, and we find bugs and we want to fix those bugs, we push that into CentOS Stream now, right? CentOS Stream is now open. This creates a circle, it creates a loop, and it's a feedback loop that is positive. So this is a good move all around, in my mind.
The cynic in me would also like to point out that if they've made that change once, there's no stopping them from changing back again. So even if they were to revert their decision, there's nothing stopping them from re-reverting.
Yeah, I mean, it is shown that there is value in what we're doing, right? And it's shown that I won't call it the whim, but a decision of a corporation can happen at any point, and it's completely outside of the community's control if that product is completely controlled by one entity, right? And so I think that the open source community as a whole should be looking at this, because there are a lot of other products as well that this could happen to. I think it's opened the eyes to a lot of people in the open source community that something like this could happen.
I mean, this is actually happening more and more commonly, even maybe not so much at the operating system level, but absolutely in cloud. And I know that there's a lot of pros and cons, right, in terms of what happened with Elasticsearch, but that's a fairly recent example, more recent even than what happened with RHEL and CentOS. So this is, I don't want to call it a trend, but I do want to say that this is happening. And enterprises that I've spoken with, organizations, have actually shared with me that they're actually starting to get nervous about counting on open source projects that are being hosted by small entities, small companies, and even some of the larger ones, like what we just saw again. And something I really kind of want to say, which is open source should not be a marketing switch, right? It is not something that a company or an organization or even an individual should release and say, this is an open source product. I want everybody in the world to use it and whatnot. We're going to create a business model on this and all this sort of stuff. And then when people start to use it, that is not in their interest, right? Either a competitor or somebody else is making money off of it. That shouldn't be a switch that now they turn off. And that's what we've seen. And enterprises and clouds and organizations are actually getting a little bit nervous about leveraging open source for some of their fundamental technologies and some products that they're going out to market with. And while I absolutely support organizations wanting to make money on what they're building, 100%, 1,000%, but don't open source it then. If you're worried about your competitors leveraging it, just don't open source it, right? Keep it closed. At some point, you can change your mind and you can open source it later. But if you're going to open source something, you have to open source it with the absolute commitment of what it is you're building, and you're not going to alienate your users and community. So it's an important decision, and it needs to be taken very seriously. So anyway, with that being said, that's what the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation, that's one of our primary core tenets, is to, again, give that confidence in terms of what it is we're building is going to be there. And not me, not anyone else on the leadership team, not any of the companies that are sponsoring this or providing infrastructure to this can change that.
And drop the mic.
And drop mic. Okay. So I think we have gotten to everything, and we've well within 5 minutes outside the scheduled time. Pretty good. If there is anything that we missed, please feel free to drop it in somewhere in Mattermost, and we will definitely answer it. We definitely want more events like this in the future, maybe some more interactive ones where we could actually pull people in and hear from them, along with some other formats.
Jordan, could
yes.
I just please add something? I saw a question about minimal release, and I know that CentOS 8 doesn't have a minimal release, but since we are going to do the demo a minimal release, there's a good chance that we will also release the minimal ISO, just like earlier that CentOS did, but stopped doing with CentOS 8.
Good. That's good news. So with that being said, we plan on more events in the future. We are open to other formats, feedback for this format. Please let us know what you thought, either in the comments of the YouTube VOD here or on Mattermost. So with that being said, somebody said to not forget to smash that like button and sound like a YouTuber.
Like,
why did I see that?
everybody? Yeah.
I don't think I was supposed to read that out loud, and that was probably a joke. But
You got to smash that like button. Hit the.
Remember
That feels
to
like a Neil comment.
Turn on the notification bells.
My money's that's Neil.
What else do YouTubers say? Something else I'm missing. I don't
Baby
know.
504 is always slap the like button.
Slap the
Hit us
like
up on
button.
Patreon.
He's my bass inspiration these days.
I knew you'd like that, Louis.
All right, everyone. We will catch you next time.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks.